Family hardship reveals true support systems in ways that everyday life never could, because crisis strips away performance, pretense, and social niceties. When everything is comfortable, people often behave according to expectation, smiling when they should smile, offering polite words when they should, staying neutral when things feel too personal. But when real difficulty arrives, when life hits with the unexpected force that shakes your identity, your safety, and your stability, the people around you undergo a kind of emotional X-ray. Hardship doesn't change people, it exposes them. It reveals their priorities, their values, their loyalties, and the depth of their emotional maturity. In times of crisis, the first thing you often notice is the silence from the very people you once assumed would stand closest. Family members who used to ask questions out of curiosity suddenly stop asking because they don't want involvement. Relatives who once enjoyed your presence at gatherings begin to avoid you, not because they dislike you, but because your hardship reminds them of life's unpredictability. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to acknowledge your suffering, because acknowledging it might mean acknowledging their responsibility to care. This kind of distancing teaches an important lesson. Relationships that were only sustained through convenience dissolve the moment they become demanding. The people who appeared warm during celebrations may turn cold when you need emotional or financial support. Hardship reveals who was standing beside you voluntarily, and who was there only because the situation made it easy. When things no longer benefit them, when your life becomes complicated, they often retreat to protect their comfort. But the value of this revelation is educational. Understanding who withdraws during your struggles allows you to adjust your expectations. It helps you develop emotional boundaries that protect your self-worth. You learn not to depend on people merely because they hold a certain title in your life. Family is not defined by blood alone. It is defined by behavior, presence, and sincerity. Yet it is equally true that in your darkest hours, unexpected individuals appear with startling compassion. These are the people who may not share your bloodline, but share your humanity. Sometimes it is a distant relative you rarely spoke to, a friend you thought you had lost touch with, or a neighbor who quietly observed your struggles. The surprising part is not their help itself, but the softness, steadiness, and courage with which they step forward. They reach out not because it's convenient for them, but because your pain activates something humane within them: empathy, responsibility, solidarity. This unexpected support often teaches more than the betrayal or abandonment ever could. It shows that relationships can be built on emotional truth, rather than obligation. It teaches you to appreciate genuine connections, rather than clinging to roles people fail to fulfill. It teaches that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the family you were born into. Furthermore, when hardship arrives, it activates different layers of emotional intelligence in those around you. Some people respond with judgment. They impose their own fears and stereotypes onto your situation. Instead of helping, they try to determine whether you deserve the hardship. They criticize your decisions or question your character. Their reactions are less about you and more about their inability to process discomfort. Through them, you learn that some individuals prioritize control over compassion. Others respond with avoidance. They don't know how to help, so they disappear. They don't have the vocabulary, the inner strength, or the emotional resilience to deal with another person's crisis. Their disappearance isn't always malicious. Sometimes it's simply a sign of emotional immaturity. But even in their absence, you gain clarity. You learn not to rely on someone who shows up only when the environment is calm. Then there are the rare individuals who not only remain present, but become anchors. They ask what you need. They support you without expecting anything in return. They don't try to fix your life. They simply walk beside you as you rebuild it. Their presence gives you emotional oxygen at a time when every breath feels heavy. These individuals become teachers, even if they don't realize it. Through their actions, you learn the true definition of companionship, empathy, and loyalty. Psychologically, hardship exposes the contrast between transactional relationships and relational relationships. Some people only participate in your life when the emotional exchange is balanced, when you can offer as much as you receive. But when you can no longer contribute equally, transactional individuals disengage. They see the imbalance as a burden rather than a natural phase of human experience. Relational individuals, on the other hand, understand that life flows in seasons. They see your vulnerability not as weakness but as a temporary state requiring care. These people are not intimidated by your pain. They treat hardship as a shared challenge, not a solitary punishment. And through them, you learn one of the deepest truths, that the quality of a relationship is measured not during your moments of strength, but during your moments of vulnerability. Crisis also reveals the emotional architecture of your support system. Some people offer sympathy, a quick message, a polite expression, a momentary acknowledgement. Sympathy has its place, but it doesn't sustain you. Then there are those who offer empathy. They sit with your pain, listen without judgment, and make your burden feel lighter simply through their presence. Empathy transforms a moment of despair into a moment of connection. It creates the foundation for healing. The lesson here is not to resent the people who fail you. Their failure simply teaches you what you need to know, that your emotional safety should not rest in their hands. Holding on to resentment keeps you trapped in the same emotional territory where the injury first occurred. But viewing hardship through an educational lens allows you to grow. You shift from asking, "Why didn't they help me?" to "What does their absence teach me?" This shift is empowering. It gives you back control over your narrative. Crises also teach you to value yourself differently. When people you expected to care turn away, you learn that your worth does not diminish because someone refuses to recognize it. You learn that your stability cannot depend on someone else's approval, acceptance, or presence. You learn that you can rebuild even when your original foundation collapses. At the same time, you learn to recognize genuine support not as luck, but as intentional kindness. When people step up for you during hardship, it's because they choose to. They are not driven by obligation, guilt, or social pressure. They are driven by character. Their presence becomes a reminder that goodness exists even when the world feels unfair. This recognition strengthens your faith in human relationships, not in a naive way, but in an informed and mature way. An important educational aspect of hardship is how it forces you to redefine the meaning of family. Society often teaches that family must come before all else, that blood ties are unbreakable. But hardship reveals that family is not defined by genetics, it is defined by behavior. A person who shares your blood but abandons you is simply a biological relative. A person who shares your struggles and supports your healing becomes your real family. This redefinition allows you to create healthier emotional environments for yourself and your children. You learn to surround yourself with individuals who uplift rather than belittle, who support rather than sabotage, who listen rather than judge. By doing so, you break generational patterns of dependency and emotional neglect. Hardship also develops a deeper level of self-awareness. You begin to see your own role in relationships. You learn how you may have ignored red flags in the past, how you may have expected more from people than they were capable of offering, and how you may have placed your emotional safety in unreliable hands. This awareness doesn't blame you. It teaches you. It allows you to make better choices moving forward. Finally, when you look back after the storm has passed, you understand why crisis is one of life's greatest teachers. It teaches you who belongs in your life and who doesn't. It teaches you how to build support systems intentionally rather than by default. It teaches you that love is not proven in words but in presence. And most importantly, it teaches you that your strength is not defined by who stands with you, but by who remains standing when others walk away. Through this understanding, hardship becomes more than pain. It becomes clarity. It becomes transformation. It becomes the beginning of a new chapter where you no longer fear losing people, because you finally understand that the ones meant for you cannot be lost, and the ones who leave were never your foundation to begin with. Self-worth must not depend on approval from in-laws, because the moment you allow someone else's opinions to define your value, You hand them power over your emotions, your decisions, and your future. Being rejected, judged, or mistreated by a spouse's family can shake even the strongest person. It can make you question your worth as a partner, a parent, and even as an individual. But their approval is not, and must never become, the measurement of your dignity. Self-respect is an internal source, not an external award. When someone enters marriage or a long-term relationship, they often carry an unconscious expectation that their partner's family will accept them, treasure them, and treat them as one of their own. That expectation comes from cultural narratives about family unity, from social pressures, and from the desire to belong. But reality is more complex. Not every in-law will embrace you. Some may see you as an outsider. Some may project their insecurities, fears, or biases onto you, and some may judge you through lenses you never asked to wear. This rejection is painful because it feels personal, even though most of the time it isn't. Their reaction often has more to do with their own unresolved issues than with your character. But before you learn this, the pain hits first. You may internalize their disapproval, wondering what you did wrong, why you weren't enough, or what flaw they think they see in you. This emotional impact is real, especially when you already feel vulnerable. Yet the deeper lesson, the one that transforms you, comes from realizing that your worth is intrinsic. It exists independent of anyone else's recognition. A spouse's family can choose to respect you or not, but they cannot decide whether you deserve respect. They can express their opinion, but they cannot determine your identity. The moment you understand this, your emotional landscape changes. You begin to see that your in-laws' acceptance is a preference, not a verdict. Their kindness is a bonus, not a requirement. Their approval is optional, not foundational. When a spouse's family rejects you, it can shake your self-esteem because it triggers a primal wound, the fear of not belonging. Humans are wired to seek social acceptance. Throughout history, belonging meant survival. So when someone pushes you away, especially people who are supposed to welcome you, it triggers deep emotional instincts. You feel exposed, unsafe, and inadequate. This is why rejection by in-laws can be more damaging than rejection by acquaintances. But emotional maturity teaches a powerful truth. Belonging based on someone else's terms is not real belonging. Real belonging is rooted in authenticity, not performance. If you have to shrink yourself to be accepted, that acceptance becomes a form of silent imprisonment. If you have to beg for respect, you will always remain at the mercy of people who don't value you. This story emphasizes that maintaining self-respect is an act of inner discipline. You must hold on to your identity even when others refuse to recognize your worth. You must protect your integrity even when they misunderstand your intentions. You must remain emotionally stable, not for them, but for yourself and any children depending on you. One of the most important educational components here is understanding projection. Often in-laws project their fears, frustrations, or disappointments onto the daughter-in-law or son-in-law. They may reject you because you represent change. You represent a new chapter in their child's life. You represent a shift in influence, priorities, and dynamics. If they are emotionally insecure or controlling, this shift feels threatening. Instead of reflecting inward, they redirect their discomfort outward, toward you. Understanding this mechanism allows you to see their behavior through a lens of compassion and clarity, not self-blame. Their inability to accept you does not reflect your inadequacy, it reflects their limitation. But there is also another important lesson. Emotional stability is a self-generated state. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose not to internalize negativity. You can choose to create boundaries that protect your energy. You can choose to walk away from toxic dynamics with grace rather than guilt. Boundaries become a form of self-respect. They are not walls, they are filters. They allow love in and keep harm out. Setting boundaries within laws does not make you disrespectful. It makes you emotionally intelligent. It teaches others how to treat you. If you allow someone to repeatedly disrespect you, you're teaching them that your silence is permission. But when you assert your worth calmly and consistently, you teach them that your dignity is non-negotiable. Independence is another pillar of self-worth. Financial independence, emotional independence, and decision-making independence strengthen your internal foundation. When you rely too heavily on in-laws for validation or security, you become vulnerable to their judgments. But when you build your own stability, their approval loses its power over you. This independence doesn't mean isolation. It means standing firmly in your own identity while still engaging with others respectfully. It means knowing that you are a whole person before you walk into any relationship. It means recognizing that your strength is not dependent on someone else's acceptance. When a spouse's family rejects you, it can also affect your relationship with your partner. You may feel unsupported, unprotected, or unseen, but even here the lesson remains centered on self-worth. A partner who respects you will not allow their family's disrespect to continue unchecked. They will create a balanced space where you feel safe. However, if they do not intervene, it becomes even more essential to ground yourself in your own value, rather than waiting for others to validate it. Kids amplify this lesson. When you have children, your self-worth becomes part of their emotional inheritance. They observe how you handle disrespect. They notice how you set boundaries. They learn confidence, resilience, and dignity from how you respond to adversity. When they see you standing firm in your identity, they learn to do the same someday. Another educational insight is that in-law acceptance is often conditional. Some families only support those who fit their expectations or serve their pride. But conditional acceptance is unstable. It disappears the moment you deviate from their script. Genuine self-worth comes from unconditional acceptance of yourself, not for what you provide, but for who you are. This understanding also prevents you from chasing approval. When you chase approval, you lose parts of yourself one compromise at a time. You say yes when your heart says no. You adjust your personality to avoid criticism. You silence your boundaries to avoid conflict. These sacrifices may temporarily win you approval, but they cost you your inner peace. Self-respect demands the opposite. It requires standing firm, even when doing so leads to misunderstanding. It requires staying true to your values, even when others misjudge you. It requires choosing authenticity over acceptance. With time, people who value honesty will respect you for it. Those who don't were never meant to play a meaningful role in your life. This keynote also emphasizes that independence is not merely practical, it is emotional. Emotional independence means not taking rejection personally, not attaching your confidence to someone else's mood, and not letting external negativity deform your self-image. It means acknowledging your feelings without letting them dictate your identity. You must understand that the opinions of in-laws are opinions, not truths. Their feelings are reflections of their beliefs, not measurements of your character. Their acceptance is a gesture, not a necessity. The story teaches that sometimes being pushed away becomes the doorway to discovering inner strength you didn't know you possessed. Being mistreated reveals the value of treating yourself better. Being rejected teaches you to stop rejecting yourself. When you experience disrespect from others, it becomes even more essential to respect yourself deeply. Through this journey you reach a powerful realization. Your worth does not fluctuate based on who enters or exits your life. Your worth does not rise when you are praised nor fall when you are criticized. Your worth is constant. It is intrinsic. It is yours. Once you understand this, rejection no longer breaks you. It redirects you. Negative opinions no longer define you. They reveal the speaker. Approval from in-laws becomes something you appreciate if offered, but never something you require for emotional security. At the end of the day, self-worth is the foundation upon which you build every relationship, every decision, and every chapter of your life. And when you build that foundation on your own terms, no one, not even in-laws, can ever take it from you. Community and extended family can become life-saving resources. especially during moments when life collapses so suddenly that you barely have time to process what is happening. While we often assume our immediate family, or the people closest to us, will be our primary support system, reality shows a different pattern. Sometimes the people who rescue us are not the ones we grew up depending on, but those who step forward unexpectedly, with steady hands and compassionate hearts. This keynote highlights a profound educational truth. Help often arrives from directions we never anticipated, and recognizing the importance of community allows us to rebuild in ways we couldn't manage alone. When crisis strikes, your world narrows into survival mode. Everything becomes immediate: safety, shelter, emotional stability, the next step. During these moments, you may find that the people you thought would protect you simply aren't there. Maybe they lack the courage, the empathy, or the willingness to get involved. Maybe they are dealing with their own lives and are unable to extend themselves. Whatever the reason, the absence of expected support is painful and disorienting. But the other side of this experience is equally powerful: the people who do show up. Sometimes they are not the ones you imagined. It might be an aunt you rarely visited, a neighbor who noticed your struggle silently, a childhood friend you haven't spoken to in years, or a mentor you never thought to rely on. Their presence teaches that community is not always loud. Sometimes it is quietly waiting for the moment you need it most. In many cultures, the idea of extended family is overlooked or undervalued, until hardship makes their importance undeniable. The moment a crisis arrives, you realize that family isn't defined solely by the people you live with or share daily interactions with. It is defined by the people who step into your life with intention when everything seems to be falling apart. It is defined by those who choose to help when they have no obligation to do so. Accepting this help becomes a form of emotional maturity. Many people hesitate to seek assistance because they feel ashamed, afraid of judgment, or worried they will appear weak. But the truth is that communities exist for a reason. Human survival historically depended on interconnectedness. Tribes, villages, extended families, support networks. We thrive not in isolation, but in connection. During a crisis, allowing others to support you is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of adaptability and wisdom. Sometimes the most transformative support comes from individuals who are not entangled in the emotional politics of your immediate family. A distant relative or community member can offer clarity and stability because they approach your situation without bias. They don't carry the same conflicts, resentments, or expectations that closer relatives might. Instead, they respond with empathy rooted in integrity rather than obligation. Their help becomes genuine, free from manipulation, and focused solely on your well-being. For example, an aunt who steps in becomes more than just a relative. She becomes a stabilizing force. She might offer a place to stay, emotional reassurance, financial help, guidance, or simply the presence of someone who believes you deserve safety and dignity. Her involvement becomes a lifeline not because of her relation to you, but because of the intentionality behind her actions. She chooses to help. That choice carries incredible healing power. The broader community, whether in the form of friends, mentors, neighbors, or even spiritual or educational circles, can provide additional layers of support. Each person contributes something different: advice, resources, encouragement, childcare, job opportunities, emotional grounding. These contributions might seem small individually, but collectively they become the foundation upon which you rebuild your life. One of the most important lessons this keynote teaches is the concept of interdependence. We often talk about independence as the ultimate form of strength. But true resilience includes the ability to rely on others when needed while still maintaining autonomy. Allowing yourself to receive support from community members teaches humility, trust, and emotional flexibility. It broadens your understanding of connection and reinforces that strength is not isolation, but collaboration. This also enhances your emotional intelligence. You begin to recognize which relationships in your life are stable, trustworthy, and healthy. The people who step up during your crisis reveal themselves as pillars. You learn who values you for who you are, not for what you provide. You learn who sees your humanity without judging your circumstances. These insights reshape how you approach relationships moving forward. A powerful educational aspect of community support is how it rebuilds your sense of belonging. Rejection from immediate relatives or in-laws often leaves deep emotional wounds. It can trigger feelings of abandonment, invisibility, and inadequacy. But when someone outside your core circle steps in to offer unconditional support, they counteract those wounds. They remind you that you are not alone, not forgotten, not unworthy. Their actions validate your dignity in a way that heals the parts of you that were hurt by rejection. Community also provides practical survival tools. For a single parent, for example, extended family might help with childcare so you can work or study. A neighbor might offer transportation or meals during a financially strained period. A mentor might guide you through job training or emotional recovery. These contributions are not merely helpful, they represent opportunities. They give you the time and space to rebuild yourself and your life with greater strength and clarity. Another essential lesson in this keynote is the importance of staying open. Pain can make you close your heart. Betrayal can make you distrust everyone. But healing requires openness, not recklessly but intentionally. Staying open means allowing yourself to believe that good people still exist, that kindness is real, and that you are not destined to face your struggles alone. It means understanding that while some relationships fracture under pressure, others rise and flourish. Your community becomes a mirror, showing you the possibilities of human kindness when you least expect it. These individuals teach you how to give and receive support. They inspire you to become someone else's source of strength in the future. This cycle of collective care strengthens society as a whole. Moreover, the involvement of extended family and community members enriches your perspective. You learn from their experiences, their wisdom, and their unique outlooks. An aunt who has survived her own hardships will guide you not from theory, but from lived truth. A mentor who has watched people recover from setbacks will provide strategies rooted in real transformation. Their support is not only emotional, it is educational. You learn resilience, you learn resourcefulness, you learn patience, you learn forgiveness, you learn that life is not meant to be navigated alone. When you rebuild your life with the help of community, you begin to understand that strength grows in layers. One layer comes from your own determination. Another comes from the people who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Another comes from the opportunities that community support brings. Together, these layers shape a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you. In time, you may even realize that the crisis you faced, painful and overwhelming as it felt, became the doorway through which new connections, new support systems, and new forms of love entered your life. You learn that sometimes the family you gain after the storm is far more nourishing than the one that let you fall in the first place. By staying open to receiving help, you allow community to function as the life-saving network it was meant to be. You learn that your survival and growth are not signs of luck but signs of connection. You learn to appreciate the profound importance of community, not only in moments of despair, but as an ongoing source of strength throughout your life. In the end, you realize that you did not rebuild alone. You rebuilt with the steady, unexpected hands of people who proved that compassion can be stronger than blood, that support can come from surprising places, and that sometimes the greatest blessings come wrapped in the most unexpected relationships. Resilience and personal rebuilding are learned skills, not traits people are magically born with. They are shaped through experiences, especially painful ones, and strengthened every time a person chooses to rise after being pushed down. In this keynote, the story of a single mother abandoned by her spouse's family becomes more than a narrative of hardship. It becomes an educational model for understanding how resilience develops step by step, how independence is cultivated, and how a parent's determination becomes a guiding force in a child's life. When a woman suddenly finds herself alone, especially with a child depending on her, the ground beneath her shifts dramatically. Everything she once relied on, emotional support, shared responsibilities, financial contributions, social belonging, breaks apart at the same time. This collapse is overwhelming, and the initial reaction is often fear, confusion, and grief. But despite how heavy these emotions are, they also become the raw materials from which resilience is built. The first layer of resilience begins with acceptance, not passive acceptance, but a clear-eyed acknowledgement of reality. Before rebuilding anything, a person must understand what has actually broken. For a single mother, this moment often comes when she realizes that no one else is going to rescue her. Her survival, her child's safety, her emotional well-being, all of it now rests on her shoulders. This realization is painful, but it is also empowering. It pushes her from helplessness into clarity. Acceptance becomes the foundation for growth. The next step is emotional resilience, the ability to feel pain without letting it paralyze you. This resilience grows slowly. At first, she may cry at night, overwhelmed by bills, memories, or loneliness. She may replay hurtful moments or wonder what she could have done differently. These reactions are human, but the key is that she does not stop there. Over time, she learns how to manage her emotions instead of drowning in them. She becomes aware of her triggers, learns to separate temporary feelings from permanent truths, and begins practicing emotional self-regulation. She learns to breathe through panic, to calm herself during overwhelming moments, and to create emotional space between what happens to her and how she responds. This emotional steadiness becomes essential, especially for her child, who looks to her for cues on how to navigate uncertainty. Protecting her child's well-being becomes the force that pushes her forward. A mother's love adds strength that she didn't know she possessed. This responsibility transforms her mindset from "why is this happening to me?" to "what must I do now to protect us?" This shift from victimhood to agency is one of the most important moments in the development of resilience. Financial independence is another critical skill that grows out of hardship. Many people imagine financial independence as a straightforward goal, but in reality, it requires resilience at every stage. The single mother must learn how to stretch limited resources, how to prioritize essentials, how to budget tightly, and how to seek opportunities with determination rather than despair. She becomes strategic. She researches jobs, training programs, childcare options, community assistance resources, and ways to earn even small amounts of income. What begins as survival eventually becomes empowerment. She starts to trust her ability to provide. She begins to think in terms of long-term stability rather than daily panic. This shift builds confidence. Financial independence isn't only measured in money, it is measured in the internal belief that you are capable of supporting yourself and your child. Another core aspect of resilience is the ability to adapt. Life after abandonment requires constant adjustment. Plans fall apart, new challenges appear, unexpected expenses rise, and emotional triggers resurface. The single mother learns to adapt quickly without breaking. She learns to pivot, to problem-solve under pressure, and to think creatively. She discovers inner strengths she had never used before: negotiation skills, time management, assertiveness, and boundary setting. She also learns how to protect her emotional and physical space. Abandonment teaches tough lessons about trust and boundaries. She becomes more discerning about who she allows into her life. She learns to identify manipulative behavior, to recognize red flags early, and to reject relationships that drain her energy. Instead of seeking validation, she seeks stability, kindness, consistency, and respect. This shift protects both her and her child from repeating cycles of harm. Resilience also involves rebuilding self-identity. When someone is abandoned, they often lose parts of themselves, not because they were taken, but because they stopped seeing themselves clearly. The mother in the story has to rediscover who she is outside of the roles others imposed on her. She is not just the daughter-in-law, the abandoned wife, or the struggling mother. She is an individual with strength, intelligence, creativity, and dignity. She rebuilds her identity piece by piece. Some pieces come from remembering who she once was before the hardship. Others come from discovering who she can become because of the hardship. Through this process, she becomes emotionally stronger and more grounded. Another key component is learning when to ask for help. Resilience is not about doing everything alone. It is about knowing when to seek support without feeling shame. Reaching out to community resources, extended family, mentors, or supportive friends is a skill. It requires trust, humility, and courage. The mother learns that accepting help doesn't make her weak. It makes her wise. It gives her the space she needs to breathe, to plan, and to rebuild her life more effectively. She also learns the importance of emotional boundaries to protect her child. Children sense instability. They absorb tension, fear, and stress. A resilient mother learns how to communicate with her child in ways that offer safety and reassurance, even when life is difficult. She becomes intentional about building a peaceful environment. She tries to replace chaos with routine, fear with comfort, and confusion with guidance. These small actions may seem simple, but they are powerful. They give her child emotional stability during a turbulent time. Resilience also grows through skill building. She may learn new professional skills, pursue education, or step into roles she never imagined. Each skill she gains increases her independence. Each success, no matter how small, boosts her confidence. Each challenge she overcomes reinforces her belief that she is capable of far more than she once thought. Over time, she learns to reinterpret her pain. Instead of seeing it as evidence of failure, she begins to see it as proof of strength. Pain becomes a teacher. It teaches her that she can survive heartbreak. It teaches her that she can stand up after falling. It teaches her that she can create a new life even when the old one ends abruptly. The story emphasizes that resilience is not loud or dramatic. It is built quietly, through dozens of small decisions each day. Waking up when she feels exhausted, showing up for responsibilities, seeking solutions, taking care of her child, maintaining hope even when the future seems uncertain. These small acts eventually form a powerful new identity, a woman who cannot be broken by abandonment because she has learned how to build herself again. In time, the transformation becomes visible. She begins to walk with more confidence. Her voice becomes steadier. Her decisions become clearer. Her child senses the change and begins to feel safer. What started as survival becomes growth. What started as loss becomes renewal. And what started as fear becomes strength. The educational message is profound. Resilience is a skill anyone can learn. Personal rebuilding is a process anyone can master. Strength is not inherited, it is constructed. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to develop new abilities, new insights, and new emotional foundations. By learning resilience, the mother does far more than heal herself. She shapes a new legacy for her child. She teaches through example. She shows that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. She shows that independence is not about isolation, but about believing in your own capability. She shows that strength is not a trait, it is a practice. In the end, her journey becomes proof that even after being abandoned, underestimated, and pushed aside, a person can rise into a stronger, wiser, more empowered version of themselves. Through resilience and personal rebuilding, she transforms her pain into the very thing that fuels her future.